Welcome to the Golden State Media Concepts, America's Still Beautiful podcast, a weekly news podcast covering all the top positive and uplifting news stories. Are you tired of the same old news? Are you sick of the seemingly endless political spin and negativity? We cover stories that will inspire, uplift, and remind you of the good in the world. Tune into the Golden State Media Concepts, America's Still Beautiful podcast to get all the great and positive news stories of today.
Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC America's Still Beautiful podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Emily Ferrier, here to bring you some uplifting stories in these trying times. For our first story, according to a new survey, 63% of Americans believe there will always be gender discrimination in the U.S. But despite those experiences, 69% of women feel more empowered today than ever before. Because of the past weekend, this entire episode is going to be about International Women's Day. This survey asked 2,000 Americans about their opinions on gender equality ahead of International Women's Day. Of the 1,000 men surveyed, 72% agree that women still face gender discrimination every day. Maybe that's why 7 in 10 women surveyed said that for them, uplifting fellow women is a top priority. Conducted by one poll on behalf of Vitamin Angels, the survey found that nearly 3/4 of respondents agreed that women's empowerment is a critical aspect to achieving gender equality. Where does that empowerment come from? A majority of the survey participants agreed that finding your passion in life was the biggest factor, and feeling confident in yourself was critical. Feeling empowerment may be as easy as eating healthier and getting some exercise, as 8 in 10 women reported that they feel more empowered when they feel healthy. Respondents also shared where they received their empowerment from. 60% said their mother was the top inspiration. So what are the top empowering moments in life? According to the survey, finding your passion in life, becoming a parent, feeling confident in yourself, inspiring others, maintaining a healthy lifestyle, taking care of your mental health, getting a promotion, learning acceptance and patience, giving back to your community, experiencing new cultures, becoming a godparent or guardian, traveling to new places. Despite years of ongoing legislative grief and gender bias, the Supreme Court of India has upheld a 2010 verdict that women will be offered the same militaristic opportunities in commissioning as men. The landmark ruling, which government will be required to uphold within the next 3 months, means that women in the armed forces can now assume the post of colonel, brigadier, major general, lieutenant general, and chief of army staff. Furthermore, they will be eligible for the same benefits and pensions as their male colleagues, regardless of their years of service. Although the Delhi High Court has already approved equal treatment for female officers 9 years ago, the government attempted to overturn the ruling by arguing that women were not eligible for promotion or intelligence positions because of their psychological limitations. Women officers must deal with pregnancy, motherhood, and domestic obligations towards their children. and families may not be well suited for the life of a soldier in the armed forces, stated the government, according to CNN. Thanks to last month's ruling from the Supreme Court, however, female officers will no longer be subjected to such archaic discrimination. The time has come that female officers are not adjunct to their male counterparts. Physiological features of women have no link to their rights. A mindset must change, Justice D.Y. Chandrachud and Justice A.J. Razdiji said in their ruling. To cast aspiration on gender is an affront to their dignity and to the country. All of the female officers in the Indian Army are very happy and very elated by the landmark judgment, Lieutenant Colonel Sandhya Yadav said after the verdict on Monday. It was a long wait, and it's ended, and we're happy about it. And this is why it's so important to empower women. As we can see from that survey, as well as from this news story, empowering women is unbelievably important. Although many countries, women are achieving equality in health outcomes, primary school enrollment rates, the world does not see the same progress when it comes to gender equity and economic opportunity. Women constantly trail men in their formal labor force participation, access to credit, savings rates, income levels, entrepreneurship rates, as well as inheritance and ownership rights. Evidence shows that putting economic resources in women's hands is the best way to accelerate development and sustainably reduce poverty. Women typically invest in their family and communities significantly more than men, spreading wealth and increasing the quality of life for themselves and for their families. So in honor of International Women's Day, I'm going to be bringing you as many stories as possible today about empowering women, women who've been breaking all the rules and restrictions that we've had for hundreds of years, and anything that might be important for our futures. So we're going to talk about the first sport that requires equal pay for women, a hotline with legal advice for women. We're going to talk about some world firsts that have happened recently. We'll talk about equal rights. We're going to talk about women that have made huge achievements and women that are discovering themselves. So settle in. It's going to be a very long and exciting episode of women, the history of women, and the future of women, and how important it is to empower the women in your life and to empower yourself as a woman. So I hope you all enjoy this one. This is one that means a lot to me as a woman and as someone who admires those who've had to struggle harder to get where they need to get. So when we come back from the break, we're going to talk about a female mathematician that broke some records. We're going to talk about that when we come back from our break. So don't go anywhere and stay tuned.
The GSMC Life and Happiness Podcast takes you on a journey of exploration. We'll discuss tried and true methods alongside the latest trends of how to best live your life to its fullest and happiest. From psychology to meditation, science to self-help books, the GSMC Life and Happiness Podcast will help you to discover what makes you happy and how you can live life being the best you possible. Download the GSMC Life and Happiness Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Welcome back. This is our International Women's Day episode. For the first time in its history, the world's most prestigious mathematics prize is being awarded to a woman. This year, the Abel Prize is being awarded to 76-year-old Karen Kaskula Allenbeck for her pioneering achievements in geometric partial differential equations, gauge theory, and integrable systems, and for the fundamental impact of her work on analysis, geometry, and mathematical physics. The award, which has been called the Nobel Prize of Mathematics, also comes with a $700,000 prize. The King of Norway will be presenting the prize in Oslo in May. According to Norwegian Academy of Science and Letters, they decided to award the prize to Uhlenbeck for her decades of scientific contributions, the most notable of which include her work with predictive mathematics inspired by soap bubbles. Her theories have revolutionized our understanding of minimal surfaces such as those formed by soap bubbles. And, in more general, minimize problems in higher dimensions. Said Hans Muthkaz, the chairman of Abel Committee. In addition to being a mathematician, Uhlenbeck is also a role model, an advocate for gender equality in science and mathematics. As a child, she loved reading and dreamt of becoming a scientist. Today, Uhlenbeck is contributing scholar at Princeton University, as well as the Institute for Advanced Study. She's one of the founders of the Park City Mathematics Institute, which aims to train younger researchers and promote mutual understanding of the interests and challenges made in mathematics. She's also the co-founder of the Institute's Women in Mathematics program, created in 1993 to recruit and empower women to lead in mathematics research at all stages of their academic careers. Uhlenbeck developed tools and methods in global analysis, which are now in the toolbox of every geometer and analyst. Her work also lays the foundation for contemporary geometric models in mathematics and physics. The recognition of Uhlenbeck's achievements should have been far greater, for her work has led to some of the most important advances in mathematics in the last 40 years, said Jim Alcali, Royal Society Fellow. In other news, after decades of research, a Mexican scientist eliminated HPV from dozens of her patients. After 20 years of research, this human papillomavirus, a sexually transmitted disease that is one of the main causes of cervical cancer in women, thought to be the most common STD, has not had a cure for the infection until now. Scientists from the Mexico Polytech Institute developed a treatment using a non-invasive procedure called photodynamic therapy. In addition to treating the virus, they used the procedure to treat preligament cancer tumors that form during the early stages of cervical cancer. The lead researcher behind the treatment, Eva Ramon Gallegos, has spent over 2 decades researching various applications of photodynamic therapy in order to find the most effective combination of chemicals to treat HPV and cervical cancer. For this particular trial, she applied a drug called aminobutyric delta acid to the cervix of the patients. After several hours, the drug made its way to the nucleus of a nearby cancer cell and shone with a bright fluorescent glow that the scientists can track its progress. Once the drug is activated, researchers can activate the drug with special laser beam that can cause the chemical to destroy cancer cells. More importantly, the treatment has virtually no side effects and leaves healthy cells unharmed. During the first phase of Gallegos' trials, she tested the treatment on 420 women from Oaxaca and Veracruz. The therapy successfully cured 85% of the women who had HPV, 85% of women with HPV and lesions, and 45% of women with lesions but no HPV. During the second phase of the trial, they changed the frequency and dosage of the treatment on 29 women from Mexico City. The alternative application ended up curing 100% of patients with HPV and no lesions, 64.3% of women with HPV and lesions, and 57.2% of women with no lesions, or with lesions but no HPV. IPN published a press release on the research findings earlier this month in recognition of World Cancer Day, though Gallegos' earlier research had been published in a journal back in April of 2017. Although researchers did not detail how they used the treatment to attack the HPV strains, Chinese and Italian researchers shared a similar success using photodynamic therapy to treat HPV. So it's pretty obvious in these stories that empowering women when it comes to scientific research will lead to some pretty incredible breakthroughs. And this episode isn't just about science. We're also going to be talking about women in many aspects of life. And that's going to be including sports. Everyone tends to think about sports as being a man's thing, men's sports. But we're going to be talking about some incredible women in the athletics world that have been breaking those stereotypes and exciting America. So don't go anywhere, all right? Because we're going to be talking about some very impressive women in the world of sports that you definitely know of, you've definitely heard of. But maybe you haven't heard of the records that she's been breaking. And we're going to talk about that when we return from the break. So don't go anywhere.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Welcome back. Before the break, we were talking about some very impressive women in the world of scientific research. And now, Simone Biles won 5 gold medals at the 2019 World Championships, more than any gymnast at any single Worlds since 1958, and earned her 25th career world medal, 19 of them gold. The total surpasses by any other gymnast in history. With 4 Olympic gold medals, 19 world titles, Biles, at 22 years old, is doing more difficult gymnastics now than she did in sweeping 5 Olympic medals at the 2016 Rio Games when she was just 19. While winning her 6th U.S. all-around title. She thrilled audiences with 2 new signature moves, never performed by a female gymnast in a competition: a double twisting, double back tuck dismount off the balance beam, and a triple twisting, double tuck during her floor exercise, an element that will bear her name in gymnastics from now on as the Biles 2. Tying then and breaking the world record set by Vitaly Sherbu with her 23rd, 24th, and 25th world medals, Biles added 5 of the 6 women's world golds, a feat no woman has accomplished since Larissa Latania in 1958. In 2013, she performed a skill that was named the Biles 1, a double layout, half-out tumbling pass, which to that point had only been performed by men. "I really don't know how I do it sometimes," Biles said. "Sometimes I wonder how I do it. I feel like it's just not me. I wish I could have an out-of-body experience to witness it." Despite her seeming superhuman skill, Biles is very human, according to her coach. With big champions, it's all between the ears, and it's nothing physical. I know talk about the physical abilities, but without this, he says, tapping his head, she would not be capable of doing what she does. Considered the greatest gymnast of all time, Simone says that she will likely retire after 2020. In other news, surfing has become the first and only U.S.-based global sports league to require equal pay for its female and male athletes, and state legislators are being inspired to follow in its wake. Back in September, the World Surf League announced that it would be awarding the same amount of cash prize money to male and female competitors. This is a huge step forward in our long-planned strategy to elevate women's surfing And we're thrilled to make this commitment as we reveal our new schedule. This is the latest in a series of actions the league has undertaken to showcase our female athletes, from competing on the same quality waves as the men to better locations and increased investment with support. This may seem pretty obvious to you, but it turns out that's not the case. Especially when it comes to sports, women have historically kind of been treated as second class. So it's pretty amazing to hear that this surfing organization is doing this. 17-year-old Caroline Marks became the first woman to win the same $100,000 prize as her male counterparts earlier this past year, when she won the first competition of the 2019 Surf League's Championship Tour. Prior to the equal pay requirements being approved, female surfers were competing for about half of the prize money that was awarded to the male surfers. This week's tournament final was the first time that both male and female first place winners were awarded $100,000 each. Inspired by this initiative, California lawmakers introduced a bill last month which will require all sports competitions being hosted on state property to award equal purses to their male and female athletes. According to Mercury News, surfing, beach volleyball, triathlons, and marathons already award equal amounts of cash prize money to their male and female competitors. But if the latest bill is approved, it could also spur other U.S. states to take positive action on behalf of their female athletes. This change is simply the right thing to do for the Women's Surfing League, and we would like to thank many advocates who've worked for decades to help advance women's surfing, says Goldschmidt. We want to be at the forefront of pushing for equality in all walks of life, starting on the waves. And we feel very lucky to have women on our tour who are highly talented, iconic role models, and more than deserve this recognition as they stand alongside our extraordinary male athletes. This is so important for representation. The equal pay is incredible. But more than that, it's seeing women on the same platforms as men. It's seeing this equality happen that makes it possible for young female athletes to think that their future is possible, like a future of them being able to live out their dreams and being counted as equal with the male athletes. This is huge. Oftentimes, we don't feel like we're as respected in many aspects, and I think the sporting world is a huge one of those, that we feel unseen because people tend to watch male sports and favor male sports. And the arguments are that, well, we can't pay you equally because you don't bring in as many viewers. But we won't bring in as many viewers if women aren't paid the same and respected. So this is a very incredible thing that the Surfing League did, and I'm very impressed by them. And I urge other sporting things to do this as well. It's very important. When we come back, some more on sports.
Want to find out what movies to go see? Then check out the GSMC Movie Podcast. It's your ticket to the latest movies, whether it's a new blockbuster event, romantic, comedy, or action flick. This show has got it all covered. They talk some what to go see now. Don't bother. What's hot on Netflix and everything in between. That's GSMCpodcast.com/movie-podcast. When it's all about the movies, it has to be this new show. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back. Before the break, we were talking about some sporting teams, the Women's Surfing League in particular, that are pushing for equal pay for women. And now, a team of female soccer players are winning hearts across social media after they were captured on video rushing to the rescue of their opponent during a moment of vulnerability. The touching scene took place in Jordan at the Women's Club Championship. The Shabab, an Ordon soccer club, had been playing against the Arab Orthodox club when one of the rivals' team players felt her hijab slipping off during the playing. Rather than take advantage of the women's wardrobe malfunction, the Shabab players quickly stopped playing so that they could huddle around her and keep her hidden while she fixed her hijab. The Shabab players went on to win the championship anyway, but after their act of kindness was shared on Twitter, they won many more accolades for sportsmanship from millions of fans on social media. I feel this story was so individual because it would have been so easy for them to use that as a tactic to win the game, but they realized that it was not as important. And they put the game aside, and they put all of that aside so that they could help her in her moment of vulnerability. And I think that that's pretty incredible. And that's actually it for our sports stories for now. So we're going to move on to this story. Since the start of the Me Too movement, actress Emma Watson has been a leading advocate for preventing sexual harassment in the workplace, and the launch of her latest project is helping do just that. Back in August, Watson collaborated with the Time's Up UK Justice and Equality Fund to create a first-of-its-kind telephone hotline that provides free legal advice to women experiencing harassment in the workplace. The hotline, which is available to women in England and in Wales, is currently open on Mondays and Tuesdays, although the group says they plan on expanding their operating hours in the near future. Research suggests that as many as 1 in 2 women have experienced sexual harassment at work. Although 1 in 5 are comfortable reporting it to human resources, the hotline's legal advice will be provided by the Rights of Women legal staff and volunteer women employment lawyers through a dedicated home telephone line. Women calling will be able to get specialist legal advice on what behavior constitutes sexual harassment, how to bring grievance against their employer, how to make a claim in the employment tribunal, settlement agreements, and non-disclosure agreements, and other related legal problems faced by women experiencing sexual harassment in the workplace. The advice line is funded by Time's Up UK Justice and Equality Fund managed by the UK Fund for Women and Girls and kickstarted by donations from other celebrities, such as Watson, who donated $1.2 million to the project. Watson published a statement on the hotline's launch saying, "It's completely staggering to think that this is the only service of its type, given the research that was found that as many as 1 in 2 women experience sexual harassment in the workplace." It finally feels like people are realizing the scale of this problem. And I'm certainly hopeful that with its global standards, such as the recent International Labor Organization Treaty on Harassment at Work, we'll start to see a new climate of prevention and accountability on this issue domestically. Understanding what your rights are, how you can assert them, and the choices you have if you've experienced harassment is such a vital part of creating a safe workplace for everyone. And this advice line is such a huge development in ensuring that women are supported wherever we work, she concluded. Humans have been walking out in space for a half a century, but the historic mission marked the first time that women have embarked on a spacewalk without the assistance of a male crewmate. NASA astronauts Christina Koch, Jessica Meir were the 2 women behind the world's first all-female spacewalk crew after they headed out into space. The NASA astronauts were headed out into the first female spacewalk to repair a broken battery charger on the ISS's power network this week. We have the right people doing the right job at the right time, said NASA Administrator Jim Bridenstine as he watched the mission unfold from the NASA headquarters in Washington, D.C. They're an inspiration to people all over the world, including me, and we're very excited to get this mission underway. The expedition took place 35 years after Soviet astronaut Sveleta Savensky became the first woman to participate in a spacewalk on July 25th, 1984. It also took 35 years after Kathy Sullivan became the first American woman to walk out into space several months after Savensky on October 11th. The world's first all-female spacewalk was originally scheduled to take place back in March, although NASA was forced to replace one of the female crewmates after they found that they only had one medium-sized spacesuit for the team. NASA representatives now hope that all female missions will become commonplace. We've got qualified women running the control, running the space centers, commanding the station, commanding spaceships, and doing spacewalks, Sullivan told the Associated Press. And golly gee whiz, every now and then, there's more than one woman in the same place. In other news, this Georgian woman is about to get her own superhero movie after she came to the rescue of a doe in distress, not once, but twice in a matter of minutes. Chloe Dorsey had been out for a morning jog in Stone Mountain Park when she came across a deer that had gotten its hip stuck between the bars of a metal fence. Since she was unable to push the critter back through, she pulled the 2 poles apart so it could run free. However, the doe ran several hundred feet more before it got stuck between yet another fence. "You need to learn how to jump, Boo," she said. "What's going to happen when I'm not here?" When the second fence proved more difficult to pry apart, she persevered, and pulling after several more times, Dorsey jumped over the fence and loosened the fence poles for the doe to escape. When we come back from the break, we have a story about self-love.
Pets bring such joy to our lives, and the GSMC Pets podcast is here to share in that joy. We'll tell stories of pets finding their forever homes, acting in unexpected ways, being helpful, or just being silly. Whether you love dogs, cats, llamas, reptiles, fish, or you've never met an animal you didn't like, the GSMC Pets podcast is for you.
Welcome back. Before the break, we were talking about women making history, we were talking about women helping women, and we were talking about women helping women in nature. And now, it's been 4 years since Sophie Tanner got married to herself. For the ceremony, the 40-year-old woman wore a vintage gown with a bouquet of sunflowers as she stood before her friends and family and promised to love, honor, and obey herself. Now, as she celebrates her 4th wedding anniversary, Tanner is celebrating the commitment she made to herself by writing a book about living and loving herself. Tanner wrote, "Obviously it was tongue-in-cheek, but when I said my vows promising to love myself, it was really quite powerful, and everyone said they had goosebumps. My friends and family were all on board. It wasn't a massive surprise." Tanner says she was inspired to tie the knot with herself after a string of failed relationships made her realize that she didn't need another person to feel happy. "When I turned 30, I'd been through quite a bad breakup. I'd been cheated on for the 3rd time. And it really knocked me more than the other breakups. I'm usually very happy and confident, but I couldn't help but blaming myself for thinking that I was not enough. I spent a few months, which were the worst I'd ever had, spiraling down with my mental health. Then I woke up in bed one morning and had a massive sense of relief, where I could feel my optimism returning. I realized I'm not the loser in this. I'm actually the love of my life. And I love myself, and I feel very grateful. Romantic love is so talked about. Nobody really talks about the love for yourself. When you're single, there's some unspoken sympathy of, don't worry, someone will be just around the corner. But I was happy by myself. And I had this idea of a self-marriage. When Tanner wrote to the council, however, they refused to make her marriage legally binding because it wasn't a union of 2 people. On top of that, her agent turned down the idea for a new book in which a woman got married to herself because she didn't think there was a market for the concept. She said it doesn't fit the rom-com element, and I laughed and I said, that's kind of the point. Despite several setbacks, Sophie arranged her own legal ceremony. 4 years on, she's set to launch a new self-love novel titled Reader, I Married Me on May 18th, which marks her wedding anniversary to herself, when she will also be renewing her vows. I was taking my vows to embrace my dreams, to one of my biggest dreams, to write a book, and it's now come true. So this will be a chance for my friends and family to join me and celebrate. It was amazing to write the book. After the ceremony, it all went a bit bonkers, and everybody was quite intrigued, and people started to talk about me. It's been such a long and convoluted journey to getting all I had on paper and getting my chance to explain why what I've done has been great. While Sophie has dated other people since marrying herself, she says she's pretty happy being single and will only enter in a relationship with someone who completes her life. I'm a romantic, and I am open to finding love, but I'm also really happy as I am. I love romance films as much as anyone, but self-love should be as important. So, we're not putting all of our eggs in one basket for finding the one. Because I've made these vows to myself, I would only really go with someone who really completed my life. If someone gets scared off, they don't get me. So it's a pretty good filter. If they do get me, they get me, and that's great. Now, towards the ending of this, we're going to start off with some of our quotes. Since the United Nations first officially adopted International Women's Day in 1975, March 8th has been a day for celebrating womanhood around the world. In recognition of the holiday, women's rights activist Malala Yousafzai created a Spotify playlist that exclusively features songs by female artists. Additionally, as a cherry on top, here are 17 of our favorite inspiring quotes from strong women throughout history. Feet. What do I need them for if I have wings to fly? Frida Kahlo. When we speak, we are afraid of our words, not being heard or welcomed. But when we are silent, we are still afraid. So it's better to speak. Audre Lorde. Women are like tea bags. We don't know our own strength until we're in hot water. Eleanor Roosevelt. There are two kinds of people. Those who do the work and those who take the credit. Try to be in the first group. There's less competition there. Indira Gandhi. Cautious, careful people, always casting about to preserve their reputations, can never affect a reform. Susan B. Anthony. Drama is very important in life. You have to come on with a bang. You never want to go out with a whimper. Julia Child. Wings are freedom, only when they are wide open to flight. On one's back, they're a heavy weight. Marina Tisavita. Cautious, careful people, always casting about to preserve their reputations, can never affect reform. Susan B. Anthony. Dying seems less sad than having lived too little. Gloria Steinem. If you don't get out of the box you've been raised in, you won't understand how much bigger the world is. Angelina Jolie. And the day came when the risk to remain tight in a bud was more painful than the risk it took to blossom. Anais Nin. And when we come back, we'll hear the remainder of those quotes and some of the history of International Women's Day.
The GSMC Life and Happiness Podcast takes you on a journey of exploration. We'll discuss tried and true methods alongside the latest trends of how to best live your life to its fullest and happiest. From psychology to meditation, science to self-help books, the GSMC Life and Happiness Podcast will help you to discover what makes you happy and how you can live life being the best you possible. Download the GSMC Life and Happiness Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
welcome back. Before the break, we were doing some International Women's Day quotes, so I'll finish off with those. You can waste your lives drawing lines, or you can live your life crossing them. Shonda Rhimes. Owning our story can be hard, but not nearly as difficult as spending our lives running from it. Bren Brown. If I stop to kick every barking dog, I'm not going to get where I'm going. Jackie Joyner Kersey. If you never leave footprints, that's the last you're walking on tiptoe. Lima Gwabi. The most difficult thing is the decision to act. The rest is merely tendency. Amelia Earhart. And finally, the bad news is your reality is up to you. And the good news is it's totally up to you. Jerry Wise Corbley. Now, we're going to talk about the history of March 8th. So the good news in today's history. Today is International Women's Day. This is obviously from the 8th of March. Be sure to honor the women in your life. The United States has actually designated the entire month of March as Women's History Month. And today is actually Mother's Day in Albania, Romania, and Bulgaria. Today's also Check Your Battery Day in the US. So don't forget that smoke detectors can give you the warn of a life-threatening situation and get you vital time to get to safety. But they can't do their job if their batteries are dead. So make sure you check on those if you didn't do them on the weekend. Good news on this date. An anonymous writer, thought to some to be Thomas Paine, published African Slavery in America, the first article in the American colonies calling for the emancipation of slaves and the abolition of slavery in 1775. On today's date, Susan B. Anthony testified before the U.S. House Judiciary Committee after arguing for a constitutional amendment granting women the right to vote. French aviatrix Raymonde Delaroche became the first woman to receive a pilot's license in 1910. The U.S. Supreme Court agreed that promoting one's religion through religious instruction in public schools violated the Constitution in 1948. Bob Dylan's single, Subterranean Homesick Blues, was released in the U.S., which gave Dylan his first top 40 hit and pioneered the use of an innovative film clip using cue cards in 1965. In 1979, the Philips Electronics Company demonstrated the first CD, unveiling the single-sided compact disc that was impervious to scratches, dust, and vibrations, leading to the CD players becoming a huge success until LPs came back to fashion during vinyl revival, thanks to their visual appeal and nostalgia for audio. The first festival of rock ever held in the Soviet Union kicked off, featuring 8 days of Russian rock music in 1980. Iraq's governing council signed a new constitution in 2004. 400 years ago today, Johannes Kepler conceived of his third law of planetary motion, which came to him in a vision. Later, he described that moment and many of the calculations that followed. They stormed the darkness of his mind, and so strong was the support on paper, he believed he was dreaming. The German mathematician and astronomer wrote the book Harmony of the World, which laid the fundamentals of 3 scientific laws describing the motion of planets around the sun. His work corrected Copernicus by revealing the planets' speeds actually varied, and their orbits were elliptical rather than circular. Kepler's laws of planetary motion were also fundamental for Isaac Newton's theory of universal gravitation. And it wouldn't be International Women's Day if we didn't finish off with some International Women's Day history. So we'll get into that. The United Nations began celebrating International Women's Day in the International Women's Year, 1975 to 1977. The United Nations General Assembly invited member states to proclaim the 8th as the UN Day for Women's Rights and Peace. An equal world is an enabled world. How will you help forge a gender equal world? Let's think about the ways that we can empower women in our world. International Women's Day is powered by the collective efforts of all. Collective action and shared ownership by driving gender parity is what makes International Women's Day successful. Gloria Steinem, world-renowned feminist, journalist, and activist, once explained, "The story of women's struggle for equality belongs to no single feminist, nor one organization, but to the collective efforts of all who care about human rights." So I hope you've made your International Women's Day a day to do what you can to truly make a difference for women. The Global Day, celebrating the social, economic, culture, and political achievements of women, also marks the call to action for accelerating women's equality. It's occurred for well over a century, the first gathering being 1911, and today it belongs to all groups collectively. It's not country-specific, it's world-specific. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this sort of special episode on International Women's Day. I thought it was important to make one specifically about this because it was it's a big day. It's a big day for me. It's a big day for women, and there's still so much work to do. Even though we've come a long way, there's still a lot to work towards. So I hope you're doing all you can to make that happen. And with that, we've come to the end. So, thank you for listening to the GSMC America Still Beautiful podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Network. I would like to thank you and ask that you please remember to subscribe to the show and write us a nice review. And if you can rate the episode, that also really, really helps us. Also, please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and, of course, Instagram. So thank you so much, and have a great night.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts, America's Still Beautiful podcast, part of the GSMC Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcasts on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type in GSMC to find all of our shows. From the GSMC Podcast Network, from social media news to marketing news, and even weird news, the GSMC Podcast Network has you covered. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's episode of the Golden State Media Concepts, America's Still Beautiful podcast.